Man in history. A couple of second-place finishes set the table for the 5 consecutive first-place finishes, capped off by that dominating 545-point victory in what was a unique year in 2020. As we welcome you high atop Orleans Arena. Hey, look, it's Matt Fraser. Welcome to the booth.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. It's a little different. Still getting used to being on this side of the gate, but you know, it's a lot of fun. Actually getting to be a spectator of the sport and kind of seeing what everyone else sees.
And getting to lend some expertise. I know you've helped out with some athletes. You've got your training program, and you've been, trying to parlay some of the stuff that you learned on the competition floor into some other athletes as well.
Yeah, for years, I played my cards so close to my chest, and I didn't want to give anyone any hints on what I was doing. And so, I basically spoke to no one about what I was doing in training. And now that I have nothing to gain from keeping it myself, trying to share it to the people that want it. And it's been a lot of fun having a couple games athletes reach out, and they're asking the questions, and so I'm like, okay, if I think you're dedicated and you're going to be using this knowledge well, putting together little training camps, and like we just had Medeiros up in Vermont for a couple days, and man, it is fun. It is fun putting them through the test and seeing what he's capable of.
Triple G Tipper comes up here. This is a 5-movement event. Starts with 100 pull-ups in a 15-minute time cap. Tommy, you go to the GHDs, the pistols, the row, and the dumbbell push press. The hardest part of this is what?
Well, it really kind of depends on the athlete. I'm a taller guy. I'm going to hate the one-legged squats, but I'm going to love the row. I like the GHD sit-ups. We've seen very different athletes excel at different points, and that's kind of the beauty of some of these chippers, right? There's so much to pick apart in a single event, unless you're someone like Matt Fraser sitting to my left and you just wreck it.
Landon Simon, Spencer Panchik needing to make a move here. He's 20th coming into this event. Came in certainly with some high hopes as a top 5 seed following the quarterfinals. 15 minutes to work. We are underway. Matt, I will turn that same question I just gave to Tommy to you. When you stare down this event, which you did in 2017, what was the part that concerned you, excited you, that strategized you most?
There wasn't really one part that concerned me, because, you're not spending too much time on any single implement. And as soon as you're done with it, you never have to return to it. So as soon as you're done the reps, you get to move on. Now you're concerned about a new movement. But I would say for most people, the hardest movement is going to be the GHDs. The combination of the time you're spending on it, the rep count, and the difficulty of the movement, and what it's going to do to you for the movements moving forward. I'd say it's the most damaging movement, in terms of how you're going to feel when you get off it. There's obviously exceptions of some of the big guys on the pull-up bar. That's a detriment to them. I remember back when we did it at the games, Brent Fikowski, his last couple reps, he's doing singles. And then you have people that have mobility issues that, the pistols are really difficult. But I'd say across the board, the GHDs is going to be the most damaging to most people. But what I love about this workout is it doesn't favor any one particular build or skill level. I'm going to be looking for the guy that has no home run hits. He doesn't have a wheelhouse workout. This is going to be his time to shine. He's not going to be the first off the pull-up bar. He's not going to crank through the GHDs the fastest, but he's not going to be the slowest on any one implement, and just be consistent all the way through.
I think damaging is my new favorite adjective for describing movements in an event.
Well, you have conversations, you look at programming. Usually there's a handful of events that you feel like the leaderboard in that particular event is a little bit more indicative of what we might see shake out at the end because of the skill set. Do you feel like this is one of those events because it has such a wide variety?
Yeah, there's events like already we've seen the snatch ladder. The top time isn't necessarily going to come out of the final heat. The ruck run this morning, the top time isn't necessarily going to come out of the final heat because it's not. Those tests aren't necessarily purely about fitness. They're going to have a bias to someone that is just good at running or someone that is just good at moving a barbell. Whereas this workout, I'm expecting to see as the heats progress and as you move towards the center lanes, the times are going to get faster and faster because this workout comes down to fitness. You need to be well-rounded. You can't be excellent at any single one thing.
Spencer Panchik has to make a move here, 20th overall after 3 events. His weekend started tough with an 18th on that snatch ladder in event 1. Matt, when you're in a spot where you have to make a move, how does your strategy change at that point? Because you can't hone in on just being here. You have to think big picture.
It kind of comes down to the event. on a workout like this, you can't let your placement or where you want to end up dictate it, because on this, it's you need to stay in your lane, you need to go at your pace, because if you try to make up for a bad placement and go unbroken on the pull-ups, well, you're going to bury yourself in a hole. If you try to speed up your cadence on the GHDs to something that you're not used to, you're going to put yourself into a hole. You need to stick to your cadence, focus on the transitions, and just being smooth and efficient through everything. On a workout like this, if you try to rush it, by the time you get to minute 8 or 9, you're going to be at this huge detriment, and then the final movement is something where you need to have a little reserve of energy for that heavy dumbbell. Because if you watch someone go unbroken versus someone that has to break it up into 4 sets of 5, there's a minute change there. So it's saving yourself that you can push it enough on the rower, go unbroken on the dumbbells, and stay efficient with it so you're not wobbling all over the place.
Our broadcast is brought to us today by U.S. Army. What's your warrior? Find out more by visiting GoArmy.com. It's almost a little bit like quicksand as we get a look at Matt Poulin here out of Oklahoma City in lane 10. The harder you try, the further behind you can fall. You almost just have to do your thing and hope that at the end of the day that's enough to get you where you need to be.
Yeah, I think once you get to the rower, if you can peek at the screen directly next to you, if you're in a race there, maybe you can kick up the pace a little bit. That's some good motivation. But trying to save a good enough reserve on that dumbbell, because between the rower and the dumbbell, that's where you can save up or gain a lot of time. I think we've seen a couple people, they get excited, they go big sets on the pull-ups, and you're thinking, man, a break on the pull-ups versus a break, on the pistols, the difference is way different. When you get into the habit of taking breaks on the GHDs, you're adding 10 seconds, and it's like, oh, I'll go every 10 reps, I'll take a breather. Whereas on the pull-ups, you stay calm, you stay conservative, you jump off the pull-up bar, quick shake, get back up. It's when you start falling in the trap of chalking between every movement, you're stepping away from your implement, that's where you start adding on the big chunks of time.
Spencer Panchik getting off the GHD first, so he'll move on to the rower here. He'll move on to the pistols here. The third movement, 60 of these one-legged squats, alternating between legs. Third of the way through the time cap, past the 5-minute mark, 15 minutes with which to work.
And Matt Poulin just moved on to the pistols as well. He has slowly kind of found his stride here after that first event. He was 26 in the snatch, 11th in the legless event last night, and then 4th, starting to improve upon a couple of performances. It's maybe possible that just that strength, that biased barbell workout was just outside of his wheelhouse.
And he called his shot, too. Coming into the run, he said, I'm going to go make a move on the run. Jacob Pfaff from the U.S. Army Warrior Fitness team in the front of your screen. He is on to the single-legged squats. Hit the 6-minute mark. Talk about Matt Poulin, Brandon Luckett as well, his training partner in Oklahoma City. Just outside qualification for the CrossFit Games, 7th overall. Now 6, 7, and 8 will get spots in the Last Chance Online qualifier, but Brandon Luckett would like to get the job done here. And a tremendous bounce back, because, Tommy, there was a moment we thought his weekend was done on the snatch ladder.
Yeah, he came into the weekend with a wrist injury, and it looked like he aggravated it on the snatch event on that final barbell. Weren't sure if he was going to be able to continue, but he bounced back well. 6th place on the thruster rope climb last night, 5th place in the ruck round, and he's in a Last Chance qualifier spot right now.
Matt, nagging injuries. You try to fight through them. How do you do it?
It depends on where I am in the season, what I have coming up, what the injury is. There's some injuries where it's, you just got to suck it up and push through it. But most of the time, if I was able to, I'm avoiding that body part completely. I'm modifying all my training. If my knee's bugging me, it's like, all right, good. Now I have an opportunity to get a stronger upper body. Trying to push through those things, you basically have to acknowledge that, okay, I'm not getting rid of this injury. It's going to stay here. So certain times in the season, it's a necessity, but I try to avoid it. I'm really interested in the race right now between Panchik and Poulin. Poulin, his technique on the pistols was so square, so symmetric, beautiful technique. He got a couple no reps, but he looked much, much more efficient. Where Panchik going at the same pace, but there's a lot of side-to-side oscillation, kicking the leg out to the side a little bit. So if that efficiency can pay off on the rower, which it looks like it is, it looks like he's cranking on that thing, I'm going to be really impressed.
Talked about Brandon Luckett a lot. Matt Poulin was his training partner at Oklahoma City. They did not know each other. They knew of each other. Their coaches knew and would kind of talk to one another and say, hey, how's he doing? How's he doing? You're really good. You're really good. Poulin reached out, said, hey, you want to give this thing a shot? And they've been training together since quarterfinals.
And Matt, for a set of 40 calories here, what is the kind of pacing? We've seen some athletes in the women's heat around between 1,200 and 900. Is there a particular pacing you're looking at?
Oh man, with this, it depends on how strong you are with the dumbbell shoulder overhead. If you're confident with your shoulder mobility and still being able to push with your legs and not having to recruit your upper body, the row is basically your last movement. This is where you're going to put the pedal down, bury the needle, and go, knowing that, okay, if I know I'm getting 20 unbroken shoulder overhead, the row is essentially your last movement. But if it's going to be difficult, you need to conserve. And I mean, yeah, look at Panchik. I mean, if you're able to just go in straight push press on the dumbbell, that saves so much time. It takes out a couple spots where you can, lose it. You're not having to time the dumbbell going overhead. God, they both look strong.
And I'm curious, if you have one side that's maybe not as strong as the other with some of these single arm movements, are you leading with the weak side when you're more fresh, maybe leading with the strength side just to get some reps in?
I would say probably lead with your strong side, especially coming off the rower. You're going to be at more of a deficit. And if you're proficient at the dumbbell, hopefully you're getting more and more recovered as you're getting to the end. So ending on the weak side is all right. Man, what an impressive time. Good for him.
9:55 unofficially for Spencer Panchik. That puts him in the lead through the second heat. Much needed points. Now we still have another heat to go, but that will add to his tally and push him up from that 20th place that he was in coming into this event. Still one more event to go here on day 2. Matt Poulin in the meantime, finishing with one more rep. He'll come in second, and at 10:21 also will finish ahead of Cedric Lapointe from heat 1.
And that's another strong finish from Poulin. Even though he doesn't catch Panchik, it was faster than any time we saw in that previous heat.
Jacob Pfaff, he finishes.
That dumbbell looked effortless.
And here comes Luckett in 4th. And if Luckett, he was only on 10. He has now surpassed the 10:50 mark that Cedric Lapointe set up. Jake Berman down in lane 9 was just no rep.
You could see Luckett struggling a little bit more on that left-hand side. It's got to be tough fighting against that wrist injury that he had earlier. And now you have to deal with this 100-pound dumbbell.
So Brandon Luckett across in 11:13. Berman as well, one of the training think tank guys. John Colte coming forward in lane 4. You could just see the way that dumbbell was controlling him as he walked forward. Leo Franco competing at home here in Las Vegas.
You can see here, he's lifting the dumbbell on the way up and almost on the way down. It's so controlled. This is where, you kind of hit a terminal velocity on how you can cycle a barbell, or, even things like rope climbs. Once you hit your capacity on how fast you can go up, now you can shave time on how you come down, how you re-rack that dumbbell. So, he looks proficient on the way up, but, it's just so controlled. It looks like it's costing him time on the way down. It'd be nice to see him just find that spot and just let it almost free fall.
A lot of focus always goes to the concentric movement. As you start to feel good with it, you can focus on the eccentric a little bit.
Well, I always look at it as, the score of your workout is the overall time. It doesn't matter if that time is saved on the reps themselves or on the transitions or on even coming down. There's a bunch of things where, I kind of looked at it like, okay, it's diminishing returns on saving time on actually actively doing the rep. well, it doesn't matter where you save a second, if it's on the way up or on the way down. So, you know, even stuff like cycling a dumbbell, you know, making sure it finds that groove when you bring it back down to the shoulder. Even the big one is rope climbs. It doesn't matter where the second is spent, if it's on the way up or the way down. A second saved is a second saved.
A more holistic approach to the entirety of the movement.
Dylan Martin here with the last couple of reps here. Just a couple of athletes left on the field. Dylan Martin is done. Dylan Youngman is still out there with 1 minute and 40 seconds remaining. Matt, the 100-pound dumbbell as an implement itself, how often are you training with that? How much do you see that type of weight on a regular day-to-day basis with this type of an apparatus as opposed to a barbell?
In my training, you know, it came up fairly frequently, you know, and we knew it was a separator in terms of knowing how to move it. We know the skill is there, the strength is there. So, you know, seeing people here, like they're having to break it up. The difference between going unbroken and breaking it up, just because you're unfamiliar with it, every athlete on the floor here is capable of moving that weight. Everyone's moving heavy barbells. Now it's just getting used to moving around the dumbbell. So, you know, we worked up to, you know, I have a set of 125-pound dumbbells in my house that they came up frequently. And it's not tough on the body because it's only 125 pounds. You know, we throw around 135-pound barbells all the time.
Right.
It's just getting familiar to how to move your body around this implement.
Dylan Youngman is fighting here what looks like a lower body injury. You can see him favoring that right leg. And kudos to him for still getting through those last 5 reps, and he just waved it off.
Yeah, good for him. There's nothing smart about fighting through it to not gain any points.
So a couple of seconds left, and the crowd getting behind Dylan Youngman, and nice to see him acknowledge it as well. The 27-year-old here from Colorado. And that caps off Heat 2, won by Spencer Panchik in 9:55. So that is the established time to beat heading into Heat 3.
And Spencer came out like a man who needed a strong performance, a little sense of urgency. First athlete to the GHD sit-ups. First athletes off the GHD sit-ups as well. So from the outset, Spencer setting the pace for the rest of the heat here. Got a little bit of a push from Matt Poulin, way out in lane number 1. But for an athlete in Spencer Panchik who had his career best finish in the Open this year, strong performance in the quarterfinals, maybe hasn't had the competition he was hoping for through 3 events. Nice big confidence boost for him. And he's pumped crossing the finish line with the time to beat so far.
Panchik in 9:53, then Poulin, who was going toe-to-toe with him up until those dumbbell shoulder to overheads. Comes in second. We talked about Luckett quite a bit, training partners with Poulin with a 4th place finish in that second heat. Heading into Heat 3, where we will see Cole Sager, who Tommy Marquez has been dominating and had just a soul-crushing performance here in this ruck race, pulling it away at the end and stealing one from James Sprague.
And props to Chris Hinshaw, who called it. He said one of the things about Cole is his ability to manage the back end of these events under fatigue, and he saved enough of a burst to pull ahead of Sprague for a 1st place in the ruck. And been really consistent all weekend long, really. Top 5 finish in the regional snatch ladder. A 1st place finish in legless 2013. Thrusters and legless rope climbs. Phenomenal couplet for him. Back-to-back event wins so far coming into this event. Another event he is quite familiar with, getting to tackle it in 2017 as your overall leader with a 20-point lead over Sean Sweeney.
That red line indicates those going to Madison directly. The blue line indicates those that make it into the last chance online qualifier. So DeLugo's trying to make up some points here to catch Will Morad. Still one more event to go here on day 2. Dallin Pepper was your overall leader coming into the day. He was near the mid to back of the pack in the ruck race, so he is still in position but has dropped back a little bit. Matt Fraser continues to join us here as we move into the 3rd and final heat. You're in a 3rd heat of an event. You've seen everybody go ahead of you and strategize. Does that impact you at all, or are you doing everything in your own mind?
I think being in the final heat, you know, it's great for reassurance of like, okay, you know, the people that you know, it's very tempting when you're in a race to go pedal down right from the get-go, but this workout just amplifies, like, pace it from the beginning. It's okay to break up on the pull-ups. It's okay to have a bit of a slower cadence on the GHDs. It's when you get to the pistols, that's when you want to start cranking up the cycle rate, cranking up the speed. So, you know, I think watching the first 2 heats go, the people that were in the lead from the first movement aren't the ones that are winning it. So that's just reassurance, confidence going into this of it's okay to pace it from the beginning.
And Matt, we saw all these athletes tackle a ruck run this morning. You got to do the ruck run in 2019. What's the recovery look like between these events?
You know, the recovery from the ruck, you know, it's tough. You know, you're breathing heavy, you're going, but it's very easy on the body. You know, there's nothing crazy pounding. There's no barbell smashing against you. You're not tearing up your hands. So I think it's a pretty quick recovery. And the volume that everyone on the floor right now is used to, a 6K run with a bit of weight on it, you're bouncing back from that pretty quickly.
The event here is the Triple G Chipper, repeated from 2017 at the CrossFit Games. 5 movements over 15 minutes. Starts with 100 pull-ups, down to the GHD sit-ups, the pistols, the row, finishing with that 100-pound dumbbell. Talked about Cole Sager off the top. Lane assignments have the CompTrain athlete in lane 6. He is right next to Dallin Pepper, the teenager aging out of that bracket for the 2nd year, making his first semifinal. Will Morad, currently 5th overall. He is in lane 3.
You talked to a lot of the crew over at that Proven training cohort. A lot of them said, man, Will has been putting in a lot of work. There were some questions about how healthy he was coming into the weekend, but he's managed to hold on to a top 5 spot so far, but he's being chased by the big man, Matt DeLugo, 6th overall after 3 events. His best finish of the weekend this morning in the ruck.
So DeLugos comes from the Las Vegas cohort, the Underdog Athletics team. Will Morad from the Proven team in Nashville. Matt, the first thing you said when you sat down, when you competed, you kept everything so close to the vest, and we've now seen these training camps start to form over the last year. What is your perspective on that as all of these athletes train amongst each other and not necessarily share their secrets, but certainly are a little bit more open door to it?
Yeah, I think you know, it's a great trend that's popping up. But, you know, coming from weightlifting, we saw it all the time, and it was good until it wasn't good. Until there was, you know, the typical gym drama, you know, someone said something. So I think if the personalities mesh well, there's nothing better. You know, having company in the gym, someone that's like-minded, motivated, willing to push you. It's great when everyone has different strengths and weaknesses, because then you're pulling each other up. It can be tough if you're training with a competitor. So, you know, like the whole Vegas crew, it's super impressive that it's 3 females and they're all crushing it, but they're training with some of their top competitors in the country. You know, I try to exclusively train with a female, so it's like I had the motivation, I had the carrot at the end of the stick of someone to chase or trying to beat someone, but at the end of the day, she wasn't my competitor. So it was great motivation, but it was easy on the mind. So for these guys that are training with their direct competitors, it's really impressive if they can make it work, and I think it's going to do nothing but elevate everyone's performance.
Right in the middle, lane 5, Dallin Pepper. Not one of those guys directly in a camp, but certainly does train along with those brute strength teenage athletes, breaking up, chalking 100 pull-ups for you, Matt. You're breaking where? What's your walk up to this?
I think when I did this event at the games, you know, I definitely I think I did a big set, maybe 50 or 60, and then, you know, maybe 2 smaller sets after that. If I were to do it again, you know, sets 30, 30, 20, 20, you know, relatively small sets, never feeling like you have to take a break. And then when you come down, it's literally just allowing your forearms to go from that contracted position to extension, just a little bit of a change, and then jump back up. Noah Olson came down. Okay, he's over 2 minutes. That wasn't unreasonable time. And
Noah Olson's on the GHD. Alex Smith as well. There is Noah Olson. Tommy, I just want to point out perspective real quick. Matt just said relatively small sets at 30 pull-ups.
I think it's going to be interesting here. You know, Noah kind of has this reputation as a gymnastics specialist, and so I think he feeds into that of, you know, okay, I'm a gymnastics specialist. I should go bigger sets. I hope he's staying to a proper game plan. Because I remember during phase 1 of the games, he kind of didn't have a great finish on a workout that was heavily GHDs, and his cycle rate on the GHDs right now is clipping. So if he can hang on to it, that's phenomenal. I just hope he's not going out too hot.
CBD MD is the CBD you can trust, and a proud sponsor of the West Coast Classic and our coverage of it. Visit cbdmd.com/CrossFit and use code CrossFit for 30% off of your order today. That is CBD MD, the CBD you can trust. Matt, you also saw Noah with his eyes closed. You attack this just by going to your own happy place?
I mean, I know I close my eyes pretty often when I was doing GHDs, just so I didn't get dizzy. You know, you're looking at this 180 degree field of view as you're flipping back and forth, and it can just be nice so when you're not getting off the GHDs, you're not as dizzy, or you're not, you know, getting nauseous from flipping your field of view all over the place. I really like Cole's technique, his cadence. You know, it looks like he fit the GHD really well to his body. His legs are straight, so, you know, he's using a good mix of his core and his quads. You know, you see some of these guys with the technique of their butt is so far down the pad, it's almost like their head is going to hit. And it's like, if you're a big guy, why are you cutting your range of motion? You know, you're big, you have this huge wingspan. The range of motion, the rule is you have to touch the ground. It doesn't matter if you're making up that range of motion from your shoulders or from your hips or from your knees. So it's like, if you're 6 feet tall, take advantage of it. But I'm looking at some of these guys, their head's almost hitting, and it's like, you know, you're moving your body a lot more than you have to.
Time to beat here from Spencer Panchik after Heat 2, 9:53, almost 9:54 officially. Matt, how many guys, even at this level, do you see set the GHD a little bit off of where it, like, just a not proper fit where they could be more efficient?
You know, some of these guys are at a high level, but, you know, they're relatively new-ish, or they haven't had too much exposure. But I don't know if people are looking at movements and breaking them down in this way. You know, it's right now, it's the best way for them. It's because that's what they've done, that's what they're comfortable with, and they're not willing to take a step backwards to take 2 steps forward. You know, they know, I want the fastest time on this workout right now in training today. They're not thinking about, okay, well, if I learn how to do this movement in a new way, how will that pay off in a year or 2 years?
Tommy, that's why he's Matty 5 belts. Will Morad. Deliberate pace here. Is there wear there, or is he just biding his time at maybe a spot in this event that isn't in his wheelhouse?
Who's that, Morad?
Morad.
I mean, Will was one of the ones I would have put my money on for this workout. You know, he's such a well-rounded athlete. You know, he's got a great build. He's been in the sport for a long time. You know, he's very experienced, and even before he started CrossFit, he was very competitive in soccer as well. So, you know, competition is nothing new to him. And anytime I've seen him compete or competed against him, I've been nothing but impressed. But I think he's one of those ones that, you know, when it comes time to ramp up the volume or get ready for the games, it's just something goes wrong. An injury happens, like I know a couple years ago at the games, he's in the top 10 and then he tears his hamstring. You know, it's super unfortunate, but it's part of the game. But he moves super well. He's a great competitor. He's well-rounded. He's got the great build for the sport. If he can keep healthy and kind of put the pieces together, I think he has a lot of potential.
Noah Olson is out front in the black shorts. Cole Sager right behind him in the green top, blue shorts. Dallin Pepper right next to him.
Oh, look at Cole. Just his cadence is great, and he looks so efficient with, you know, you see Noah, he started out super fast. When he's fresh, he can crank out pistols. But then as soon as he starts getting fatigued, that not as finely tuned technique starts catching up. You see him having to round his back a little bit more, is leaning off to the side a little bit more. So this late in the workout, maybe he had done enough early on where he can hang on to that lead. But if Cole can save a little energy on these pistols, not be too far behind, and use his body weight and his size on that rower to crank away, I mean, he has a chance still of catching up.
Not yet halfway through this third and final heat in event 4. Cole Sager will now join Noah Olson on the rower. Going to see if CrossFitters across the world are now going to adjust their damper settings as they get back into the gym. Matt Fraser, when you went on the rower, your damper setting was what?
It depends. You know, I've done workouts with the damper on 2, and I've done lots and lots of training with the damper on 10. You know, early on when I was putting more and more time on, all my PRs on the rower are from probably high 3 to low 4 damper. Later on in my career, when I was like, okay, you know, rowing's no longer a weakness and it's not translating over quite as much into other workouts as much, you know, kick up the damper a little bit so that it did translate over. It's not making it a bit more of a strength work instead of just engine work. But I mean, my 2K PR on the rower, I think my damper was a high 3, and it just like get that stroke rate kicked right up and keep yanking, you know.
Someone at a gym somewhere tomorrow is going to throw a damper on 3 and go, Matt Fraser said.
We saw just a second ago, Dallin Pepper starting to look around. You mentioned you take a peek just to check in every once in a while at the monitor.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Why would you not? You know.
Yeah.
You know, if you need a little extra motivation, it's like running on the track. If you have someone 2 meters ahead of you, it's easier to speed up than it is if you're 20 meters behind someone. So if you look to the side, go, okay, I'm only 2 calories behind him. Let me hold my wattage 50 watts higher, and I'll catch him by the end. You know, it's a good carrot at the end of the stick. All right, we'll see how long Noah stands around. If he gives Cole a chance to catch up, I think Cole can move this dumbbell well.
Well, if he gives Spencer a chance to catch up as well, 9:53 is that static time he's chasing. 9:19, 9:20 now.
Noah looks good with that dumbbell.
This is easy.
Yeah. All right, looks like Noah paced that workout well. He knew what he was getting into.
He's got about 20 seconds to get through the rest of these to claim an event win.
Don't put it down, Noah. He's so smooth. Why'd you put it down? You got to remember about the previous heats.
And it looks like Dallin Pepper and Sean Sweeney got to the dumbbell at the same time as well for 3rd place in the heat.
So Panchik will win the event. That is massive, 100 points for Spencer Panchik. Noah Ohlsen moves forward. He has Sager right on his heels. Sager has one more rep to move forward. Ohlsen drops the dumbbell. He edges out Cole Sager.
Oh, come on, Cole.
That's a heat win for Noah Ohlsen. Dallin Pepper and Sager toe-to-toe here.
Cole put the dumbbell down. Dallin transitioned with it at his shoulder, switched it over.
And Dallin Pepper sees the fruits of his labor.
Weeks through. I don't think Cole put that down intentionally. I think he was bringing it back to his shoulder, had a little bit too much momentum. So instead of fighting it, he just put it onto the ground. But I think the push presses on the dumbbell are the way to go.
That also ties back to what you said about, you know, practicing, picking up time here on the other side of that rep as well. Not just on the way up, but bringing it down too.
Remember, Will Morad was on that cut line right now in the Last Chance Online qualifier, so critical points fleeting away from his grasp.
But the nice part for Morad is that Matt DeLugos over in lane 1 still on the rower.
And DeLugos was right in that mix with him as well. And no rep issued down in lane 9. That's Jake Berman.
It looked like the pistols for DeLugos gave him a little bit of trouble.
At 6'4", he's the tallest athlete on the men's side here. Comes into play. Although you'd think maybe that would help him out once he gets back on the road.
He's a big, heavy, powerful athlete. He won the quarterfinal test with those wall balls and that nasty row at the end.
Tola Morqueño moving forward to his final 5 reps.
Tola trying to bounce back after a rough go at the ruck run this morning.
So Morqueño is done unofficially in 12:13. Still plenty of time before we get to the cap here. And Jake Berman trying to work his way through. One of those training think tank athletes, trains with Noah Ohlsen on a daily basis. Noah Ohlsen is right there, edging him on.
even though Will Morad maybe wasn't at the front of this particular heat, some of the athletes behind him, Bernier in lane 2, DeLugos in lane 1 spot and 3 spots behind him respectively, still finished behind him. And then looking at the time on the clock, the other athletes from the previous heat are going to factor in as well. There's a couple athletes in that 12-minute range.
And the 100-pound dumbbell is proving to be absolutely no problem down in lane 10 for Matt DeLugos. 2 athletes left out on the field. Brian Wynn still on the rower on the opposite end of the floor, as DeLugos just advances out of nuisance. He's cruising on his final 2 reps. So DeLugos is done around 13:36. And a minute and 20 seconds left for Brian Wynn to finish down in lane 1. So Wynn will have some time here to work on the 100-pound dumbbell. You know, Matt, this follows a 6K ruck run this morning. You still have another event to follow this. How do you deal with your body? How do you deal with recovery? How do you pace the day so that one of these doesn't take you out of contention for the rest of the weekend?
It's only 3 events in one day. You know, if these guys are training properly, a competition like this, it's a recovery week. You know, 3 workouts in one day. And one of them is a very low impact ruck run. You know, it's difficult, but it's easy on the body. You can recover from it very quickly. You know, if they're training properly, this weekend should not be a high volume weekend.
Never looked at competition that way, but from a training standpoint, you're doing a ton more on a daily basis than you would be doing.
Yeah, you know, the last couple of years at the games, it's, you know, 4 workouts in one day. I mean, that was lower volume than I'd ever done in training for the last couple of years. So you're coming out at the end of the games of, all right, you know, the intensity is throttled up a little bit, but the volume is nice.
So we hit the cap here for Brian Wynn to bring a close to the end of Heat 3. Your impressions of this overall, Matt, to be back out here. We're in a stadium, we're in a venue, we're giving out tickets to the games. This feels kind of normal, but for you, does it feel weird yet? Has it settled in that this isn't going to happen, and you're okay with that?
Oh, no. I mean, I couldn't be happier being on this side of the gate, you know. I made sure that when I made the decision to retire that, you know, I didn't want to be one of those people that was, you know, calling my retirement and then I'm bored for 2 weeks so I get back into it. I was like, no, I'm going to ride this until the wheels fall off so that when I'm on the other side, I'm happy, you know. And I had projects set up so that something to consume my time so that I'm not going from working hard at something to just doing nothing and being lazy. It's no, I'm still working hard. It's just the arrow's pointed in a different direction. And it's so much fun because, you know, I'm friends with a lot of these guys out here. So, you know, just watching them compete, working with new athletes, you know, trying to give them some advice on how to get better, how to progress, what to expect in their upcoming, like, future bright career. I'm having the best time.
Is there any unexpected surprises, maybe good or bad, from being on this side that maybe you didn't anticipate when you made that decision?
Not really. You know, I'd been planning my retirement for over a year. You know, I tried retiring after the 2019 games, and then I got talked into one more season. So, you know, I had been thinking and planning about this for a very, very long time coming in. So, you know, the day I retired, I already had some projects in the works, and so I just hit the ground running with those. And so keeping busy, and you know, I've been waiting and planning this for so long that as soon as it happened, you know, every day you're just waking up with a smile on your face, like, man, I don't have to get on that bike and like feel like I'm dying all day. This is great.
Just remember that whatever it is you're doing, the hard work pays off.
Yeah.
Matt Fraser, appreciate the time. Good talking to you.
Thank you guys for having me.
Event winner is down on the floor with Nikki Brazier.